This is a Relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Hey, what's up, Real Talkers? Grateful to have you here with us on this is a very exciting episode for us. We get to make a big announcement. We get to introduce you to somebody that we're a pretty big fan of, and this all relating to our federal election coverage. Grateful to have you here. I love this from Erica, who's already joining everybody in our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power. She says, I love the clips and the recaps from previous shows. If you're just joining us 12 hours or 12 days after we've done this episode on YouTube, or maybe you're listening to the podcast, you will not have been privy to this. You will not have caught this. This is our Real Talk pre-roll, and every morning at 8:25 ish. Sometimes it depends on how long the pre-roll is. Anywhere from 8:24 to 8:26 Mountain Time, 10:30 Eastern Time, we'll call it. Johnny kicks off our live stream. You can join that on 7 different platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, X, TikTok. You know the drill. Instagram. We're all over the place, and YouTube, of course. And he plays you like the shorts, the highlights, the 60-second clips, the best of our most recent episode. So it's a cool way to get into the live chat. Everybody's saying good morning to each other. It's like the most amicable Canadian thing that we could possibly do to kick off every show. Plus, you get up to speed on the absolute highlights, the must-see moments from episodes you may have missed. So that's the Real Talk pre-roll. You can join our live stream every weekday morning. And a shout-out to Erica for showing a little love to that. Johnny puts in a lot of work on it, and you do a killer job with it, my man. A little recognition for you.
Thank you so much.
A little bouquet, as they say on this morning.
Thanks for the little bump, and I'll give you a little bump as well. Happy to see you on CBC last night with Ian Hannah-Mansing.
That was a bit of a thing for me.
Yeah.
In professional media career, you do a lot of appearances. Mm-hmm. You talk to a lot of people. You do a lot of interviews, and every once in a while you get interviewed. But to be tapped on the shoulder by one of the CBC's 2 they've got a lot of talent.
He's
over
my
there.
favorite on the channel for sure.
It's like him and Adrian Arsenault kind of quarterback the whole thing, and to have Ian tap us on the shoulder was amazing.
Yeah.
Talking about what's going on with Danielle Smith, her Breitbart interview that everybody's talking about, and kind of getting an Alberta perspective on
a little
that.
hockey too there at the end.
Yeah, he asked me about Mark Carney skating with the Oilers. You know what I noticed though? A tiny little thing for Real Talkers that may have seen it. It was on Hannah-Mansing tonight. So we're going back and forth. You always know those interviews are going to be between 3 and 5 minutes. Real Talk, we do deep dives. Real Talk will go long form. We can talk to, Ian's been on the show before. I think we kept him for 40 minutes. Yeah. We like to pick people's brains, but these ones are going to be quick hits because they're going around the country and around the world, right? So I'm like, keep your answers quick. Don't sort of try to maximize your talk time or they'll never invite you back. I did forget the one thing, though.
What?
We're talk show hosts. We do a talk show over here. This is opinion. We opine. We share our thoughts. The Real Talk rumor mill churns out stories every time we find it to be appropriate. They can't do that like on Hannah-Mansing tonight.
It's quick.
And the anchors have to be objective, right?
Yeah.
So the anchors, I don't think, prefer questions.
Yeah.
I think they prefer to ask the questions.
Oh, when you asked them about...
So Ian's asking me about Mark Carney skating with the Oilers, and I say, here's a question for you, Ian.
Yeah.
And I say, with the Oilers dropping that game later that night to the Winnipeg Jets, does Carney have to own the loss? And, of course, ever the professional, he says to me, I think that's a question that we'll leave for the experts.
Yeah, he's like, let's wrap this up. He did say, the Carney curse.
The Carney curse.
He did throw that in. I heard that.
I love hearing a CBC anchor say that. So thanks to Ian Hannah-Mansing for that. Sure appreciated. And obviously, it was kind of cool at the end as well. We're just, can we have our moment here, Real Talkers? Can we have our moment? Maybe we'll play it. We should put this into our Real Talk pre-roll.
Yeah, we're gonna get
at the end.
We're gonna get the footage and play it later this week
on the CBC. He says to us, he goes, "Yeah, so I listen to Real Talk all the time."
Yeah,
and he goes, and I was listening today, and I love what you guys are doing with the election.
That, yeah.
He goes, I love your enthusiasm, and I'm going like, this kind of feels like, we're not going to call it an endorsement, but if Ian Hannah-Mansing is listening to our show in his free time. We got to send him like a shirt, a coffee mug, whatever else. He's our biggest ambassador.
And an invoice for prep.
Our biggest ambassador and one of our best. Anyway, shout out to Ian Hannah-Mansing. I'm glad that meant a lot to me that you were watching. I got the fist bump text
I went
from you.
Straight home. I made a drink. I had some popcorn ready. I was, post my mom. I texted my mom. I'm like, Ryan's going to be on the show today.
There we go.
Like, you know what the first thing she said? Oh, do I ever love that Ian.
Oh, everybody. I've got a friend that calls him the handsome man thing.
Yeah, right?
But one other thing, and you can if you follow me on Instagram, you can see it in my stories. It'll still be up there. I just panned the CBC newsroom. This is the CBC Edmonton newsroom, so I go do a hit from there. He's in, obviously, all their anchors are in Toronto or Vancouver.
Just 2 blocks from here.
Yeah, 2 blocks from here. That thing, it's 3 floors, and I had it's been a while since I've been in like a legit huge newsroom, but there's people working on they call it RadCan, like the Radio Canada, and then they've got people filing for the national, and then they got people doing the local news there. They got their web team, they got the socials, and it's just like this army of people in there. There's a lot of energy in that room right now. I think everybody that's covering the federal election is finding reasons, obviously, as a professional, to kind of get excited. It feels like an election where there's a lot at stake. Yeah. There's a lot of stories to be told, and that's a big part. Coming back to what we're going to be talking about today, a big part of the reason that we're excited, sort of expanding our partnerships and our collaborations, and I think the quality and the depth of our coverage of this election as Canadians prepare for April 28th. Yeah.
And shout out to CBC. There's a lot of talk of defunding the CBC. Look at the coverage, the expansive coverage they've already got going. They've got an anchor they've got an anchor with the Bloc. They've got an anchor at the NDP headquarters. They've got an anchor with the Liberals. It's just, I watched it for an hour and a half after because it was so informative. So, yeah. Keep Canadian content and media like that alive.
Yeah, 100%. I got Blasheep here in our live chat saying I sent a long email to you guys last night. Is this the one, Blasheep? It's like 3 pages, but you know what? It's all really good. And so we've been sitting on this one. We get a lot of emails to talk at RyanJespersen.com. We appreciate it. Some of them are quick hits, like this one from Ron. We're going to get too quick, but Blasheep, I'm going to sit with yours for a second to kind of sift through it, because this is like more of a thesis. This is like this is like informed commentary, kind of on the state of Canada. But let me give you a little teaser. Maybe we'll get to this a little bit later, but it says, I removed my support. This is how Blasheep opens. I'm assuming you don't want me to use your real name. I'll use your handle here in the chat. It says, I removed my support from the federal Conservatives a few weeks ago, talking about, and then talks about basically the reasons why, and gets into it, and is talking about Russia and China and Ukraine and Danielle Smith, and a whole bunch of stuff going on. So we know for a fact that this isn't a discerning audience. This is an informed audience, and an audience that has high expectations for this election campaign. So let's get into it without any further ado. Before we introduce you to our guest for today, I want to let you know this episode's happening with the presenting sponsorship of Alberta's top online real estate school. You can find them online at relo.ca. That's RELO.ca, where better real estate training starts. Bold claim, sure, Alberta's top online real estate school, but they back it up. It's real estate learning online for the bold and ambitious. You'll see that immediately when you check out their website and realize what comes with your investment in Relo. Whether you're thinking of a career in commercial or residential real estate, you can get licensed easily with clearly explained concepts and helpful instruction. You're going to save on costs, by the way. Promo code coming in 10 seconds. And they're all about value, so they've added a smorgasbord of extras to every course they offer, including full access to their ecosystem resources and tools, including in-depth webinars, ongoing support from their learner success team, and more. If you're signing up for the Alberta Residential or the Alberta Commercial Real Estate Bundle, make sure you use the promo code Ryan100. That's all one word, Ryan100, when you get started today at Relo.ca. That'll save you $100 on each of those. What a start to your real estate career with Relo. All right, friends, we appreciate those of you that catch us on YouTube, watch us on social media, subscribe to our podcast each and every weekday morning. But I know for a lot of you, your podcast subscriptions, your talk show subscriptions also include weekly editions. And we are super excited to be partnering with a talented host on a brand new series. It's going to run all the way through the federal election. You'll be able to catch it every single Friday. My friends meet, party all the time.
I never thought I'd see the day when Wayne Gretzky was unpopular. And the other day, I saw a video of people singing the Canadian national anthem at the ballet. The ballet! And in just a matter of weeks, we have a whole new prime minister, and he's calling an election. Something has changed up here, and just in time, Canadians are heading to the polls. I'm Vicky Mochama, host of Party All the Time, and every Friday morning, I'll be chatting with the journalists who know about this kind of thing and chatting about the week's headlines with some friends. Welcome to Party All the Time. Subscribe or follow to get the show in your feed.
All right, Party All the Time, hosted by Vicky Mochama. You'll be able to download it or stream it every single Friday as we welcome the host of Party All the Time, making her Real Talk debut. Vicky Mochama, what's up? Good to see you.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. A lot of people are going to recognize you from your work. You've done a lot of writing for the Toronto Star, Star Metro, Vice, Globe and Mail, the Washington Post. The list goes on. You've also hosted a good number of podcasts. You've been covering Canadian politics, news, and happenings for years and years and years. What are you excited about with this new series?
With this new series, I'm so excited to just get back in the booth, my booth here, and talk to people about what's been going on. You know, what we had in 2021 wasn't a change election. It was an election to kind of figure out what the country wanted to do, how we wanted to settle in. And now we're going to figure out what we want to change, or if it's going to be a change. And either way, there's going to be a different prime minister than the one we've had for the last 10 years. And I think it's going to be incredible to see the country have the conversations that we need to be having.
Yeah, those conversations, I guess everybody's trying to nail down right now. You know, when we say what's the ballot box question, like what's the most important conversation going to be? It seems obvious that it's going to have something to do with Donald Trump. What are you seeing early on in particular? I mean, everybody just seems to be talking about Liberal leader Mark Carney, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, with apologies to all the rest. But who early in this campaign would you say is resonating more with voters?
Oh, see, that's hard to say because I think, you know, I really love the phrasing that Nick Nanos used, which is to say, like, based on the numbers that we're seeing from polls, it's going to be, he says, a knife fight in a telephone booth. It's going to be close up matches. And I think what's really interesting is that I think Canadians are more engaged than ever. I'm really curious about things like we're going to look at turnout numbers to see if people come out for early voting, if people come out for campaign events, for rallies, the way they've never done before. You know, we saw this weekend, elbows up rallies across the country. That's a level of engagement with a general conversation about their Canadianness that we haven't really engaged with in a very long time. I mean, we see it during the Olympics. We see it during like a men's a hockey match and a women's hockey match, but we don't really talk about it outside of that, and we don't connect it to our politics. And now is really the time to do it, partially because Donald Trump has presented this huge spoiler to what we've understood as our relationship with our neighbors to the south. But at the same time, we've also had massive changes from a pandemic to now, from affordability a decade ago to what it is now, to a climate crisis that is still ongoing, despite what you might have heard. That's still happening as well. So there's all these features and all these bugs of our society that we need to kind of just attend to, and this is the right moment to do it.
Kind of interesting to see. I mean, like if you talk to, scientists, obviously, like you say, climate change isn't going away. It's not disappeared. It's not something that we managed to heal, but political conversations in Canada relating to climate change have everything to do with finding something to replace the carbon tax, axing it to start, which both party leaders, Carney and Poilievre, have promised to do in some way, shape, or form. But nobody's really talking about stringent standards, adhering to protocol promises, and that type of thing. What does that tell you about where the electorate's at right now?
I think it tells you a lot about where the parties are at. There's not a lot of, in terms of the carbon tax and carbon pricing, there's not a huge amount of daylight between them when it comes to that issue. But when it comes to more specific programming, like you're talking about, environmental requirements and regulations, things like the duty to consult with Indigenous peoples who also have, some questions about climate effects in their communities, that is still ongoing, and there is quite a lot of distance between them. As for whether or not the electorate cares, that depends on who you're talking to and when you're talking to them. It's a spring election, and God, we do weather in this country during spring. And that's going to tell you whether or not this issue matters to people. And so, we're going to focus on it just because Donald Trump is the newest crisis, but climate change is a long-standing crisis. And we're going to do a special episode, especially on climate change, just for you guys.
Looking forward to it. As mentioned, we should point out to people, your first YouTube episode will go out on Friday, and obviously we'll pump that up, but they can already find your podcast, Party All the Time, on any podcast platform, wherever you get it, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or an alternative. Make sure you subscribe today. Go ahead and give it a follow, and you can check out the trailer as well. We're talking to Vicky Mochama. She's the host and producer of Party All the Time, a special series that'll run all the way through the Canadian federal election. We mentioned I was talking to Ian Hannamansing yesterday about Danielle Smith's Breitbart interview. Everybody was talking about Danielle Smith's Breitbart interview. Different opinions, I guess, on whether or not she should be doing American media. We've talked in past on this show. I've said that I can see justification for going down and trying to talk to American, conservatives, to the Republican base, to use those massive amplifiers, those huge cable news shows and the big podcasts to advocate for Alberta. But quite frankly, in her own words, this wasn't that. This was not advocating for Alberta or fighting for Canada around the trade table. This was asking for the Americans to press pause on action against Canada, not to stop, to press pause on it to achieve a political outcome. And probably the most damning statement from Alberta's premier is, quote, the perspective that Poilievre will bring to the table, aligns with the new direction of America. Geez, I mean, that's a tough one to get out from under. What are people saying in Ontario about it?
I think there's a sense in Ontario that Danielle Smith goes her own way. We've seen there's been the premier's approach to a comprehensive Team Canada, everyone's all in this together. We're going to go down to the States and pull together. And for whatever reason, Danielle Smith has often chosen to sort of veer differently from the rest of the team. And this seems to be building a case that maybe in terms of Team Canada, Danielle Smith has her own plans. And she can say, that's in defense of Alberta's interest that she's doing all these things. But there is that concern of bringing family conversations. And there's no doubt there's lots of people among conservative circles across the country who are saying Donald Trump's politics maybe more neatly aligned with Pierre Poilievre's, but maybe there are those who don't want it said so loudly and so often, and especially not during a federal election campaign. So it's not great. It's not ideal for Danielle Smith to be speaking to American media at a time when, Doug Ford is very successfully speaking to American media on Fox News and having an impact that does seem to be shaping at least the conversation, if not the politics, and she's doing something else. And I think that's the concern, which is that at this moment, we don't really have a sort of in-chief character who's leading all these conversations. We have individual pockets of people doing their own thing, but are we pulling together as Team Canada to really defend our interests? And with Danielle Smith making these comments to Breitbart, it suggests that maybe there's a little bit of a fray when it comes to Team Canada.
Yeah, I've seen some people calling for, demanding that she cancel her trip. She's supposed to be headed down this weekend to Florida. I think it's on the 27th, right? The Thursday, that's like tomorrow, right? She's going to be talking.
Is she going to Mar-a-Lago?
Anyway, in the next few days. No, she's going to this PragerU thing, so this is sort of an educational, I don't know if you want to call them a lobby group. It's an entity that works on curriculum and educational materials for Florida schools. And it's a fundraising event. And she's going down there to co-host it. That's how they have it billed. Her and Ben Shapiro. And if you're like an Alberta provincial politician, and no disrespect, but if you're an Alberta provincial politician and you're on these big posters, you're a conservative and you're on these big posters and playbills and promotions with like 2 photos on them, and it's Ben Shapiro and you, I can understand if you're trying to increase and amplify your American conservative media profile, this is a huge opportunity. But that's not necessarily the number one thing that the premier should be concerning herself with. So a lot of people are saying, well, she's got to cancel this trip to Florida. Now, my personal instinct, my inclination is that there's no way in hell she's doing it. But interestingly, she did cancel all of her public appearances yesterday, which was the day, really, that this Breitbart story broke, which is also kind of interesting, by the way, because it's been almost 3 weeks since the interview. But it's just surfaced. Do you think that she should cancel the trip to Florida as maybe an olive branch to federal conservatives? Or you think maybe pride, ego gets in the way and she says, hell no, I'm going?
I don't think anybody should be forced to go to Florida. That's just my general opinion.
Sure.
Horrible place.
Sure.
But she should, I don't know. I think it's an interesting choice to really situate herself as a pro-MAGA, if not actually, make America great again, conservative, at this time when Canadians have a lot of trepidation about what that means for their economic futures. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce lists Calgary as one of the places that is highly exposed to tariffs from the American side. That's a present danger for people inside her province, and she's not necessarily at this moment finding the resonances that she could be. I think there's a moment to be statesmanlike, and I think there's a moment to be in the hard scrabble of politics and really just sort of like elbow everybody out of the way. I don't know if she's rising to meet the moment by attending events like this and speaking to places like Breitbart about what the political calculus should be for Americans when it comes to intervening in Canadian federal elections.
We're hanging out with Vicky Mochama. She's host of Party All the Time, a new podcast. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe today. Give a listen to the trailer and get ready for episode number 1 dropping March 28th. In our live chat powered by Park Power, Justin says the comments from Ben Shapiro recently, even just about the U.S. annexing Canada, are bad. Justin goes on to say, not to mention his disgusting views on every other topic. Ben Shapiro has referred to Canada, for example, as like the Puerto Rico of the North. And I'm not here to pile on Puerto Rico, but he's just showing basically that he thinks that Canada is kind of a second-tier nation. There's no really respect for sovereignty, although that's kind of been the tone that really hardcore Republicans in the United States have been taking across the board right now. Johnny, I know that you're the only dual citizen employed on this podcast.
Yeah, born in Florida.
So born in Florida, by the way, Vicky. He's a Miami boy. But what do you like on the calls for Premier Smith? I mean, I see Lorraine in our chat right now saying taxpayers definitely should not be paying for the Premier to go to this event. Quite frankly, I'm a little surprised that they're trying to justify that. There's certainly enough donors. There's certainly enough funds to fund the Premier's trip down and basically get rid of that entire objection. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on this? Like, I don't think she's canceling. I would guarantee she's not canceling the Florida trip. But what do you think?
No, but it does. It's indicative of like the Trump thing, how he went on Rogan, right? But I don't know if that works in Canadian politics. I don't know if this is going to give her, I mean, it'll give her a boost with her base already, but I don't think this is going to bring anyone else in the fold. So I don't really see it as a W. I don't really see it as an L either, because it's going to make her base happy. But her
base will be stoked.
Oh yeah, they'll be super stoked. But I don't see it doing anything for her in terms of bringing more people into her fold.
Yeah, Vicky, I think the thing to me that I just think seems most dangerous now for, quite frankly, like any Canadian politician or any Canadian business leader or whatever right now. I even know like influencers and like travel bloggers that are right now like canceling partnerships. They're not going to like blast out to all their Canadian followers how much fun they had in Portland, Oregon, or in Tennessee at a bourbon. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like at some Kentucky like tourist destination. They're not doing it right now because it can harm their brand and harm their reputation so much. It kind of feels like right now this whole elbows up campaign that you mentioned, like the entire mindset, almost like the foundation of this entire election and what everybody's going to be talking about is how Canada needs to stand. Canada strong, Canada first. Look what all the parties are putting out there. So to me, going down and unless you're going down to really talk tough, unless you're going down to unabashedly advocate for Canada, to go down and rub shoulders and hobnob and really kind of make friendly with the exact people that have been saying the dumbest shit about our country. That, to me, is why I understand a lot of people are really, really riled up right now.
Yeah, I think it's a hazard, especially considering that the next round of potential tariffs are coming up in the next week, to be seen to be sharing stages and spaces with people whose politics often are not aligned and are in opposition to the economic well-being of the country you're from. That's a failure of reputation management in some ways. But I think in terms of the politics of it for Danielle Smith, of course, it appeals to her base. They are aligned and inclined to believe in the things that Donald Trump says and thinks that some of them are applicable to Canadian politics. We hear echoes of it. We hear things like cuts to foreign aid, finding government spending efficiencies, limiting immigration. That has been a conversation that predates this election. We hear echoes of what's happening in the United States. But we don't necessarily, I think Canadians still believe in the differences, and they want to be separated from that. And especially the things that are harmful and toxic to our politics, they want some distance from. When there was a contingent of Canadian conservatives who were aligned with Rebel News, and then there was that horrible attack in Charlottesville, that had repercussions. So it's very it's a very tricky time to be sharing spaces with American conservatives who aren't invested in Canadians' well-being.
Yeah, well said. Taking a look at our live chat, powered by Park Power. Get exclusive deals on internet, electricity, and natural gas by checking out parkpower.ca/realtalk. Redneck Philosopher says, I'm pro-MAGA, you idiots. Danielle is looking out for her province and its biggest employer. If you want Alberta to be Ontario, move there and let Alberta be Albertan. That from Redneck Philosopher. Except for, here's the thing, Redneck. That's exactly the issue that people have with the Breitbart interview, is that she's not there talking about Alberta oil and gas and pipeline access and energy security. She's talking about putting tariff talk on pause so that her guy can get elected, so that she can achieve her ideal political outcome, and then unpause the tariffs and hope that they can figure something out. That's not advocacy for our biggest employer. That's not trying to get Alberta jobs protected. That's trying to act as a political activist. And I think, quite frankly, Vicky, this is the safest thing that I'll say all week. It really hurts Pierre Poilievre. It really hurts him on like day one, really, of this election campaign, as all of his messaging is trying to push himself away from Donald Trump. Interesting rumors on, MP Jamil Javani is, good friends with J.D. Vance from the university days. People wondering, the tinfoil hat crowd, if they're cooking up this conspiracy where the American vice president is convincing the president to say he'd rather have Carney in office to actually do Poilievre a solid. This is everything that's swirling around right now. And then all of a sudden you got the conservative premier of Alberta saying that their values align and his perspective, aligns with the new direction of America. It's brutal for Pierre Poilievre.
Absolutely. And I think more to that, it's brutal for our democracy to say that, we have a premier speaking to American officials saying, here's how you can change your policies to benefit myself and my political party. That kind of thing only creates more conspiracy thinking, more distrust that people have in government and in politics. It is not that, she's not allowed to think these things. It's actually very common to hear conservatives, elaborate on these ideas. But at the same time, it impacts how people think politics functions, that somehow there's always this quid pro quo between the United States and Canada to benefit a certain political situation domestically. That's not necessarily how it works. That's not how it should work. And for her to advance that kind of thinking, especially in a public setting where she should be advocating for her province, it really does impact people's thinking about democracy. And we have questions about our democracy that we should be asking about safeguarding it and the threat that America and other actors pose to it. And it doesn't help. It just doesn't help.
On our live chat here, different opinions, right? Like Sharon says she's definitely not doing her job here if she's out on the talk show circuit. Like, what on earth is going on with there? I see others, though, like, saying that, they think, like Black Sheep says, I don't think she should cancel. I want Alberta on the world stage. Dubious says she's setting up a podcasting career for after her political career, either that or getting ready to commit treason and give Alberta to Donald Trump. Alberta Girl says no Canadian politician should be doing media or speaking to PragerU at a time like this. It shows the premier's need to cross that floor again, stirring up the past. There you go. Fair play from Alberta Girl. And what about this one from Emily? Says, I don't want to be represented on any stage by that person, the premier of Alberta. So different opinions there in the Real Talk live chat. Let us know what you think to talk at RyanJespersen.com. We're hanging out with Vicky Mochama. When we come back, Vicky, a story making news this morning as we're speaking, as we're doing this show. Obviously, a lot of people have been paying attention to allegations that foreign interference had played in to Pierre Poilievre's bid for the Conservative leadership back in 2022. CSIS now, this story by Robert Fife, Stephen Chase in the Globe and Mail, released just a couple of hours before we're talking. CSIS, Canada's spy agency, alleging that India organized support for that Conservative leadership bid. But here's the thing. They say that Pierre Poilievre was unaware of it. Why? He was not informed. Why? Because he doesn't have a security clearance. I want to put that in front of Vicky Mochama. Is this a thing or not? Poilievre says it's not. On our show just a couple of episodes ago, James Cumming, former Conservative MP, explained why it makes sense for Poilievre to refuse his security clearance, but it's got people talking again. More with the host of Party All the Time in just a quick second. First, I want to let you know that our friends at Solar by Kubi are celebrating 10 years of Kubi. Congratulations to them, and a chance for you to win $10,000 in their giveaway. That's right. All Kubi customers can check out the details at kubi.ca. They're giving back $10,000 to customers that sign up and pay a deposit for a Kubi solar system between now and June 18th. How's it going to work? You can check out the details on their website. You're entered to win the minute that you pay that deposit. Your panels don't have to be installed yet. Of course, their teams aren't up on the roofs as the ice is melting, but they'll be up there soon. Your name will go into a draw, and then at their summer solstice event on the 20th of June, they're going to draw 2 winners live, and each of those Kubi customers is going to win $5,000 back from their solar purchase. How cool is that? You can request a free quote today by checking out their website. That's kubi.ca. Solar by Kubi, celebrating 10 years in business, and our shout out to them. Our friends at California Closets reminding you that they are proudly Canadian owned and operated. California Closets, wants you to know that when you're working with them, whether that's that free consultation you have with their skilled designers, or you've already got the team there putting in that perfect walk-in closet, maybe something out of your laundry room, maybe you have a third or a spare bedroom doubling as a home office, a Murphy bed would be absolutely perfect. Everything you're seeing is manufactured on Canadian soil and installed by their Canadian workforce. California Closets has been proudly family-owned. Nobody does custom closets and storage solutions like they do. You can request that free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. Today's top story across the country, CSIS alleging that India organized support for Pierre Poilievre's Conservative leadership bid in 2022. The Conservative leader, so says Canada's spy agency, not informed as he has not received the appropriate security clearance. Vicky Mochama, host of Party All the Time, a new political podcast, joining us. Poilievre says he doesn't need security clearance, says as a matter of fact, it precludes him from holding the government accountable. If he's informed on such matters, he can't publicly comment on them. Do you buy it? And more importantly, will Canadians buy it?
I think maybe a couple months ago, people might have bought it. They might have said, that would stop him from rising to speak on issues. But now it just suggests that maybe there's a lack of credibility issue here, which is to say that like a little bit of the Mark Carney bump appears to be because he appears to be a credible agent of this government. Like he is able to speak to the issues that we have, and he's able to communicate to Canadians about them. And he knows all the information. He's going to get all that he's getting or has gotten the clearances required to do the job, and is still able to speak to issues. People will look at Pierre Poilievre and say, why can't you do the same? How are you unable to speak to foreign interference in our government while having the top secret clearance? Why don't you have the information about your own campaign, let alone the federal campaign, let alone how foreign interference is in fact impacting other parties' campaigns, and still speak to them? I think at this moment where Canadians are feeling a certain amount of tightness about their security and integrity as a whole, it's an interesting question to put to the leader of the Conservative Party. Why? Still, why? It doesn't necessarily, I think after a while, it doesn't hold up that you want to be in charge of the country's security and governance, but can't get the information that would allow you to maintain your own party's security and governance. I think there's a big gap in thinking there that they're going to have to spend probably all of today either explaining or throwing some dazzling deals in front of Canadians to distract them from.
Yeah, referencing the Globe and Mail's reporting, Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, learning that Indian agents were involved in raising money and organizing within the South Asian community for Mr. Poilievre during the leadership race, which obviously he dominated. But the CSIS assessment did not indicate that this effort was done in a sweeping and highly organized way. A reminder that Mr. Poilievre won on the first ballot with 68% of the vote. It wasn't even close. CSIS says that there's no evidence that Pierre Poilievre or members of his inner circle were aware of the alleged actions of India's agents and their proxies They say that CSIS did not share the information, as mentioned, with Pierre Poilievre because he doesn't have necessary clearance to access secret documents or receive classified briefings on foreign interference activities in Canada. He is the only federal party leader who has declined an offer to obtain a security clearance. Vicky, it's also going to have people wondering about whether or not they can trust Canadian elections, right? A story like this, a story of foreign interference, will prompt people to wonder, well, what's just not just CSIS, the RCMP, the federal government, Elections Canada, what are we doing to ensure that this type of tampering or this type of interference isn't going to actually affect and dilute our democracy like we talked about earlier? What do you think the average Canadian feels about something like this?
I think it makes them uncomfortable because we want to think that our elections are straightforward. One person, one vote. You choose based on your particular interests and ideas, and there's nothing in the way of that nothing intervenes or nothing meaningfully attempts to circumvent your power to vote. I think in this era, it's a bit more complicated. There are nefarious actors who have an interest in harming our democracy and affecting it and changing it, whether that's misinformation campaigns designed to distract people and designed to even maybe radicalize them or torque up their feelings in a way that maybe isn't authentic, to what we're seeing in riding level, nomination level interference, trying to sway the outcome of a particular vote. We want to be able to trust our democracy. We want to be able to trust the final result reflects what Canadians want and wanted. And this makes you feel a little uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel like even with 68% of the vote, there's this question arising. And unfortunately, the leader of the Conservative Party is not necessarily in a position to be able to give the answers that are solid. And we'll see what answer he says, because in the past he said having the security clearance would prevent me from holding the government to account. I guess the question is, what's the answer now? What does this prevent you from doing to be able to have the information that keeps Canadians' elections safe? I did see that Elections Canada is kind of on top of this. They're working with the social media platforms to tamp down as much misinformation as possible. There's questions about what the policing infrastructure in this country will do around any issues that arise, but it has been a rising concern that there are bad actors, Russia, China, India, to name a few, who are invested in Canadian democracy and invested in harming the power of Canadians to decide who they want to lead them.
Yeah, to say the least. Harman Kendall is in our chat. He's a valued member of our recurring Real Talk group chat roundtable. I'm excited to let Real Talkers know that they can catch a federal election edition of the Real Talk group chat roundtable coming up on Monday, the 31st of March. Harman says between this story and Stephen Harper's recent comments on wanting a closer relationship with the Indian regime, the Conservatives need to clarify their position on foreign interference from India. That from Harman. And I'm sure that obviously there will be more talk on this show between now and next Monday, but on the 31st of March, we'll basically, Johnny, on this stuff, we sort of like hand the mic over to our group chat roundtable, and they just kind of take it and run with it. So I'll expect more from Harman on this story coming up on the 31st. Vicky, you got to come hang out for one of these. It's like, Johnny, how many mics do we have? We've got like 6 or 7 mics going, and it's just basically
unlimited.
Sometimes it's coffees and sometimes it's Prosecco, but either way, we cover all stories in fulsome fashion. We'll have to fly you out for one of those. That'll be a good one.
Absolutely. I love being flown out.
Before we wrap, because I know you got to get back to producing your show. You got an episode coming up in 2 days. How about this story? Unbelievable. Trump officials, led by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, a former Fox News host, texted war plans to a group chat in a secure app in Signal that included a journalist with The Atlantic. If it weren't a story about bombing Yemen and something that actually happened, then we'd probably be laughing so hard we'd cry. This is like an SNL skit. But it turns out it's been confirmed top national security officials for President Trump, including Hegseth, texted plans for upcoming military strikes to a group chat that included the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic, which is, given The Atlantic, one of the greatest scoops of all time, an accidental scoop from a text chain that contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, including information about targets, weapons that the U.S. would deploy, and attack sequencing. Not exactly the type of thing that would be found in a group chat, not exactly the type of thing that would be shared with the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Defense Secretary Hegseth himself, stepping off a flight, met with journalists and was obviously asked about this. And as you can imagine, he was a little bit touchy. Here he is.
One question.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details?
So, bit of a tough look. And I guess when in doubt, attack the source. Thoughts?
I mean, they're always going to go after journalists for doing anything, right? There's not a lot of love lost between the Trump administration and the media. But I think, I'm not mad. I'm glad he saw the results. I'm glad he saw it all kind of vibe to Pete Hegseth's answer and to the general White House response about it. I'm not going to go into like deep dives defending Jeffrey Goldberg, but he should have stayed in the chat. That's my first thought. He should have just stayed in the chat. He should have just hung out for as long as possible, taken as many screenshots as possible. Signal is secure in that it's more secure than many others, but it's not free from screenshots. It's not free from other people just looking at the chats that you're having. And it's laughable that the highest echelons of American government are having conversations about war in a Signal chat when they have ample other places to have these conversations, including in person and on the phone. It's just ridiculous. But it's what we're in for. We're in for at least 4 years of just the most clownery you've ever seen in the most disastrous way possible.
Have you ever been in a situation like that where you were looped into a group chat that you were definitely not supposed to be a part of and have been made privy to information you were definitely not supposed to see?
This is every journalist's also dream. Like, I absolutely wish, but there's like one Vicky Mochama in media and nobody's slipping me information accidentally. No one's just like accidentally tagging me. If my name was Stephen Chase, maybe I might be looped in because there's probably a couple Stephen Chases in politics. But the funny one that I love is my sister has a very common Kenyan name. I'm from Kenya, and it's just her name at gmail.com. And so for years, people in the Kenyan government would email her documents because they just be like, I met a woman who has your name and she works for the government. And she's gotten all sorts of documents from like the Ministry of the Environment, the Ministry of National Defense, very less national defense stuff, but like all this documentation from within the Kenyan government. And she's just like, I live in Canada and I don't understand what all this documentation means. And after a while, she just kind of had to abandon that email because it was just so full of everyone emailing everyone who's ever met her with her name.
Oh my gosh. I was telling Johnny this was like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, we were doing this show. And I found myself on a group chat and I didn't even recognize I didn't even have half the numbers in my phone. And then I realized it's a pretty significantly sized organization talking about where they're going to buy their media, like where they're going to spend their promotional dollars, like which campaigns they're going to go with, how much they're going to spend, how long. And I'm just like, we were on the list. So I was kind of like happy to see that. But at the same time, Like, I'll be honest, it was giving us insights into what other, like, this is not bombing in Yemen, but in the context of what we do for a living, we're getting insights into like what other outlets are charging, what clients are spending, the thinking behind the buys. And at some point you're like, I must disclose at some point that I'm in this chat and I'm not supposed to be in it, right? Like, there's the kind of an ethical thing that comes to play where you're like, when they realize that I'm in this group chat and I haven't said anything about being in the group chat, there could be hell to pay that could impact our business bottom line. I wonder if the Atlantic found themselves in that position. Like, at some point, they've got to figure this out.
Yeah, I think I saw on MSNBC, it was a brief reference, but I think it was the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic said something about, like, I don't want to violate the Espionage Act. There's journalism, and then I don't want to end up in prison forever. Like, this moment is revelatory about what's happening, but, like, this isn't the Pentagon Papers. Like, I'm not going to jail for a text with, someone sending me the, like, fist bump, American flag, fire emoji. Like, I'm not going to prison for that. So I'm certain he had, beyond ethical concerns, like major legal concerns about his involvement in this.
Pretty interesting to see. A shout out to our live chat for putting this on our radar. Pete Buttigieg, did you see his post on Instagram from his official account? Quote, today's news of an astonishing security failure at the White House from an operational security perspective is the highest level of fuck up imaginable, says Pete Buttigieg. These people cannot keep America safe. A reminder, this is about discussing military operations on what they describe as a secure messaging app. It's called Signal. Thought it might be interesting to take a look back at what Defense Secretary Hegseth had to say about Hillary Clinton when it had been determined that she was using an unsecure email server for official communication.
Apparently, the standard operating procedure inside the Clinton Secretary of State office was to send emails that couldn't otherwise be printed to the maid to print them out of a secure area or from a secure area and then hand them off. Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information. The fact that she wouldn't be held accountable for this, I think, blows the mind of anyone who's held our nation's secrets dear, who's had a top secret clearance like I have and others, who know that even one hiccup causes a problem, let alone a standard procedure like this.
So there's that too.
I think Pete Buttigieg is so funny to say, like, this is the highest level of fuck up imaginable. Like, we're only at the beginning. We're a month and a half, 2 months in. Like, there's going to be more. We're going to scale heights of awfulness that we haven't imagined before. It's going to be a very creative time for fucking up.
That's Vicky Mochama. Her new show is Party All the Time. It'll be out every Friday through this election campaign. You can find it on YouTube. We're going to blast it out and everywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. It's ready for you to subscribe right now. First episode drops on the 28th of March. We're super excited to be working with you on that, Vicky, and to let this audience know, you and I are going to be hanging out every Tuesday morning as well through the campaign, checking in on the stories from across the country. We're super excited for that as well.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. We'll talk to you again soon.
See ya.
You got it. You can follow Vicky on Instagram and X as well, at @VMochama. Pretty interesting to hear, like, Hegseth talking about, like, that wasn't too long ago, the Hillary emails thing, although it does also feel like an eternity ago. Remember, that was like the biggest story.
Yeah, that was a throwback.
But when he's talking about accountability, there's got to be consequences. There's got to be accountability. In this situation, I don't know how you justify this one. Donald Trump, the king of firing folks. I don't know. Is this a fireable offense for Donald Trump? In Donald Trump's White House?
I don't know. I just think it's funny. Like clearly. These are real messages, right? And the reporter who, they're trying to discredit and they're trying to lie and say we didn't do this. He said there was worse stuff on there, but obviously he has a moral center where he didn't want to disclose, items of national security. He said there was way worse stuff on there. There was like targets that were going to be hit and how to alleviate, damage to potential civilians and other targets that they didn't want to hit. This is stuff you do not talk about in apps. This is stuff you talk about in rooms with closed doors or through, This is not stuff you do over apps, but I think it's indicative, and I love that Vicky pointed this out, of just the shit show that the Trump administration is. Like, I don't think they give a fuck, Ryan. I think they are fucking DMing each other about all sorts of shit that you should not be talking about whatsoever on apps that are not like fully encrypted. And even then, like I guarantee there's WhatsApp conversations with these guys who are just talking about, political strategy and things that should be nowhere near. You should not be typing these things into your phone.
Yep. Redneck philosopher says, oh my God, how dare we question a reporter? This is sad. Like, redneck.
No, question
I don't know who redneck philosopher. I don't know you personally, but like, I hope you're not this easily fooled.
Yeah, that he would risk his career.
Hey, guys, like shiny things over here, shiny things over here. Like, I guess the allegation is that the Atlantic is making this up.
That they photoshopped these
the group
items
chat doesn't exist.
Risk their careers and possible imprisonment.
Right. I saw and I guess to tie two stories together, not drawing direct lines, but to tie two of the stories, obviously that are making a lot of news this week and a lot of the and that we're talking about right now because of the top political stories. If you take a look at even Danielle Smith, her office. In talking about whether or not and this is supercharged language, did Danielle Smith invite or encourage foreign interference in our election? By her comments on this Breitbart interview, and her office yesterday, spokesperson saying that that it is demonstrative, not just false, but it is offensive. Yeah. They say it is offensive and it is false, and I think a lot of people are going, listen, we're just listening to your own words. Right? Yeah. And it's the same story here. It's like the guy is included on the group chat. He's not reporting that a group chat exists and that the defense secretary or the president or whomever, senior Trump officials are using group chats to order or coordinate bombings in Yemen and elsewhere. No. He is in the group chat. Yeah. He has seen it. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. I mean, I understand you want to, attack the credibility of your opponent. That's one of the oldest tricks in the book. But in this case, it just sounds like a desperate man.
Dude, it's Bush League, and it makes them look Bush League. And it's what the left calls the right, saying they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And that's why they're trying to discredit this reporter and say he's a liar. But the bottom line is, like, all these things that are being said, the Danielle Smith stuff in public, these chats about military targets over apps, all this stuff, like the government, the Secret Service, the Canadian security for the government, they have the means to communicate, secretly. And so use those means. And the thing with Danielle Smith, I get it. This is bad for Poilievre. The Trump thing, the tariffs, has boosted the liberals in this country. It has propped Mark Carney up, whether you like it or not. That is the truth. That is, period. End of statement. But if you really wanted Trump to take the tariffs off so that a conservative government could win, an election or maybe a majority here in Canada, you don't have to say it on a talk show or on a podcast. You're buddies with Kevin O'Leary. Text him and tell him to tell Trump. Why are you saying it outright to the public? That's even Erica Baruti's on our show, who is often aligned with the premier, said that even Pierre Poilievre, if he was, in the room with Danielle Smith, would have said, and I love that this comment she said, just shush.
No kidding. Hey, shout out to Renee for the contribution in our super chat. We sure appreciate you. Super chat Ken says they should be thanking the reporter. Says if he was a scumbag, he would have actually been live tweeting the actual classified information in real time.
Well, he would have been in jail.
Yeah. And you know what? That's like, I remember back in the day, a bar, like this is when Twitter was first coming out. So maybe people just didn't understand social media etiquette or whatever. But I remember a bar in Edmonton was live tweeting check stop locations.
Ooh, that's
and I was
not
like,
good.
dude,
but even
it didn't work out well for them.
When you're thinking of this reporter, he didn't just screenshot and go live with it. He's got people. Like his company has liability experts, lawyers. Guaranteed he ran this through them first and said, here's what I have. Here's what I'm about to do. How exposed are we? And then he went with it.
You can read it at theatlantic.com by Jeffrey Goldberg. This is, I don't know, do they give Pulitzer Prizes for headlines? If they do.
For screenshots.
The headline, the Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans.
What a headline.
U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. By Jeffrey Goldberg.
So clearly there was waiting that happened here. There was, he mulled over this. He didn't just, screenshot, go to his social media, because then he really would be fired. Then he really would be in a prison. Then he really would. He'd be in handcuffs right now if this was a false allegation.
Randy Thunderhorse says the U.S. will have so much to unpack and deal with when this current administration is done. You can check into our live chat powered by Park Power every weekday morning. We're live at 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern, or you can send us an email to talk@ryanjespersen.com. Also, leave a comment on our YouTube episodes or hit us up on any of our social media channels. Real Talk happens with the support of incredible partners like our friends at Friesen Brothers, celebrating 70 years, still family owned. Can you believe this? In 2025, they want to let you know about a Filipino feast they're going to be hosting. This is the first time that they've ever done this, April 5th and 6th at all of Friesen Brothers Fresh Market stores. Don't miss out on tasting authentic Filipino dishes cooked by Friesen Brothers Red Seal chefs. It's an all-you-can-eat feast, including famous Filipino dishes like pork adobo, beef caldereta, chicken inasal, and more, plus a full salad bar, all just $25 per person. Don't miss out on April 5th and 6th from 4 to 6 p.m. at all Friesen Brothers Fresh Market stores. You can check out all the information on their website. We know that a lot of you right now are paying attention to world news, to the headlines, and you're wondering what's going on with our wealth management, with our investing, what's going on with the markets, what's happening with the Canadian dollar. North Road Investment Council is a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. They're Edmonton-based team partners led by Marshall and Carrie, work with discerning families, foundations, and associations on this winding path with expert navigations through the complexities of wealth accumulation and investment advisory services. One of the things that makes them different, they offer this, nobody else does, a full-time team member working on digital risk advisory. If you're working with North Road Investment Council, this individual is going to be working directly with you and your family to see how you're doing on digital risk, and then they'll button and buckle everything down to make sure you're protected. You can learn more about that service by checking out northroadic.com. Hey, if disaster strikes into this spring or summer season, we know we're never expecting it, but you talk to any community that's experienced a flood or a wildfire, or maybe just a family or business that's seen a sewer backup, or maybe discovered black mold in the walls. This is not the type of thing you want to handle yourself. Complete Care Restoration has more than a quarter century of experience. By the way, a family business grown from a garage all the way into what they are now, one of the biggest entities in Western Canada, working with insurance companies to restore properties and rebuild peace of mind. They're available, ready to respond 24/7. You can find more about this company, Complete Care Restoration, online on their website. We recommend them with 2 thumbs up. Why? Because we've worked with them and we've seen the quality of their work. Friends, if you've got the evening open on Saturday, April the 12th, I want to invite you to join me downtown Edmonton at the Innovative Canadians for Change Gala. This is the IC Change Gala, the 6th annual. It's going to be a wonderful night celebrating clean water and clear futures. This is a not-for-profit group based in Edmonton, established 15 years ago, dedicated to tackling systemic global challenges through innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. It's an incredible organization. You can learn more about the gala and get your tickets today by visiting ICChange. That's the letter I, the letter C, change.ca. That's coming up April 12th right here in the capital city of Edmonton.
You ever send a text to someone by accident you shouldn't have?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's the worst.
And as soon as it happens, you're like, how can I how can I backtrack from this? I'll give our real talkers some insight, and I've done it, and I did it to you, and you didn't even say anything. This was the first year we were in this studio. I believe it was so we moved in here in October. I think it was after the new year. We were planning. It never happened. It never came to fruition, but we were planning to do a live show from Jasper. So we were getting all the technical stuff together here, and the studio was still having its ups and downs with technical issues. I remember it was just and after Christmas, the bank account funds were low. I had just paid taxes, and me and my partner Jatinder were both had come down with colds.
Yeah.
And I remember you were like, "We're gonna go to Jasper. We're gonna set up. We're gonna do this whole." And I was trying to go through this, and I was like, "Man, going to Jasper, I need a vacation, but it doesn't sound like a vacation. We're both sick, and you wanted Jason. Your wife was gonna come." And I remember at the last minute, you were like, "You know what? We're not going to do it. We're going to hold off. We're going to do it another time because I've got a hosting duty or something was coming up. You're busy." And I remember texting my wife and saying, "Looks like we dodged a bullet on the Jasper vacation." And I texted it to you, and you did not say a word. And I was like, and so it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like I didn't want to go. We were just the stars were not aligning. But I remember just the oozing of just anxiety that came over me when I sent the text and realized, because I had been texting with you at the same time about the trip, and then you finally said we're not going. And I just remember the feeling. Imagine the feeling when it's national security that you're sending.
And what was the first time that that you realized this, right? Everybody that's done that, do you realize that you've included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in the group chat, or does somebody text you? Is it your buddy that's like, "Sup?" And you're like, "Sup?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yo, that group chat about Yemen?" Yeah. Did you know you included The Atlantic on it? And then all of a sudden you kind of get that, when your body temperature goes from, what's our body temperature, 98 or something like that, Fahrenheit, something like that. It goes from 98 to 104 in 1 second. You start getting the beads of sweat on your forehead.
Yeah, when you're included in a group chat, the first thing you do when you get one of those and you see the bubble at the top and there's +5 or whatever, you check all the names, right? But as the conversation goes on and people get added, I'm not sure what happened here. Was he added at the start? Probably not. It sounds like he was added mid-conversation. Do you recheck every time you text to see if new people have been added? Probably not. That's what happened here most likely. And so I don't think they knew at any point until these went public. Or maybe this reporter did due diligence and contacted some people, maybe not in government, but some aides, and said, "Hey, this is what I have. Is this real? And also, you guys need to check who's in this chat because there's some serious shit that you're."
Well, and Ms. KD makes the point in our live chat too. Basically, she says, and it's not just that. It's they're glorifying basically war actions or glorifying military strikes like schoolboys. That's the thing.
Talking about not giving Europe anything, and I don't want to give them a leg up, and
exactly. The story is not just that a member of the media, and a high profile member of the media that was included in the group chat. It's the fact that these conversations and this planning is happening in a group chat, right?
It's ridiculous.
Shout out to Erica who pointed out to us, I didn't see this tweet from Hillary Clinton. She posts the story, the link to the Atlantic piece, and just says, "You have got to be kidding me."
Well, with the emails, I don't know if that's quite the, you don't want to call the shitstorm down on yourself.
Well, but think of, the Hillary, the emails thing, maybe this is sort of oversimplifying what happened in 2016, but the reason, I would say probably the most effective attack on Hillary Clinton during that 2016 election when Trump beat Clinton was the emails. Hillary's emails was the number one attack on Hillary Clinton, right? So if you're sitting here now, and we played you the audio, we played you the video from Hegseth back on Fox when he was a Fox commentator, talking about what he thinks should happen, the accountability that there should be when it comes to Hillary Clinton and her emails. Then how does any of that change now?
Not at all.
Not at all. Right. So this is, this is just kind of I think if you want consistency and if you want integrity, then that's what the type of conversation you should be happening now is, what is the consequence here? And how can Americans trust that? This is sorry, I know that I'm saying obvious stuff here, but when you're talking about military strikes in the Middle East, that's pretty sensitive information, and that's a pretty big deal. So Emily says they're living out their G.I. Joe fantasies. It kind of feels like that, right? Like, I don't know. I just think for a lot of people, it's the type of story where it just adds to the list of reasons why people are questioning the credibility of those who are calling the shots, right? Bringing it back to Alberta, we got an email here from Ron to talk at RyanJespersen.com. We thought that we might save this, Johnny, for the flamethrower coming up on Friday, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. These are your hottest takes, but Ron's a little bit more calm and measured, so we thought, well, maybe we'll squeeze it in today. Ron says, as a proud Albertan, I'm very concerned that Danielle Smith is laying the groundwork to bring us into the fold of the Americans against our will. Ron says, I'm a proud Albertan, but I'm a Canadian first. And I'm even more concerned that this is a majority opinion in more rural parts of the province. Ron says, please fact check me, Jespo, and tell me that I'm overreacting. Tell me that I'm reading too much into things, because this is something I don't want to believe, and I really do not want this to happen. That from Ron, who writes in the subject line, by the way, increasing concern. This has been kind of interesting, watching comments on we did our polling. We did our unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll for those of you that didn't catch it the other day. Pretty interesting results. We asked, if the election was held today, who would you be voting for? And we had like 15,000 people vote, 15,255 votes. Pretty interesting to see that 78% of respondents, I'm showing it to you on my screen right now, 78% of respondents said that they would vote for Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. 14% said they would vote for Mark Carney's Liberals. About 8% said other. And if you look at the comments section was absolutely hijacked and pure entertainment. It's PPC voters all the way through. So I've been hearing from PPC voters over the past 24 hours or so. But if you look at the comments and you start to dig into some of that stuff, especially the polls that are showing more Liberal support, like when we talked to Philippe Fournier from 338 Canada, he's talking to us about how the Liberal support is absolutely, it's just 180'd. It's 180'd since Mark Carney won and since Donald Trump started his economic war on Canada. And you asked Philippe Fournier about this, and he says, we'll take a look at what Canadians are doing with regards to vote intention. And there's a lot of people that are saying if the Liberals win again, this is going to pour gasoline on the fire for Alberta sovereignty, for Alberta separation. They're saying this will be the last straw. Like the only thing that has kept Alberta, this is the comments that we're reading, the only thing that's kept Alberta satisfied in Canada right now is the knowledge that Justin Trudeau is going to be leaving and Pierre Poilievre was going to be the prime minister. And if that doesn't happen, if there's a wrench that's thrown into those plans, well, then Alberta is going to have to leave. And some of the commenters will go so far as to say that if Danielle Smith doesn't support this type of thing or doesn't start amplifying this narrative, then that could be the end of her political career. Now, I don't think that that's going to happen. I will fight like hell to stop that from happening. I don't think that the majority of Albertans want that to happen, but it is a thing in the sense that people are talking about it, and I do think that it's worth conversation. So you can send us an email to talk@RyanJespersen.com. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think that another Liberal government would actually legitimately accelerate some of the momentum in Alberta in talks on sovereignty or separation? What do you think? As somebody who lives here, you've lived here for a long time.
Probably.
What do you think? Do you take it seriously, though?
Probably. It's been around for the last 5 to 6 years. It's been everywhere. So, yeah, I probably would see some sentiment from it. I think the majority of us just kind of, push that to the wayside. It's not going to happen. No province is ever going to leave the country. We're not going to become the 51st state. These things are kind of just, I'm more concerned with the rhetoric. I'm more concerned with people using it as a weapon. Like in an argument or a debate, it's like, well, you can do that, but then we're taking our oil and leaving and stuff like that. Or maybe we'll align with Trump, or, you got Jeff Rath going down and, to the States
lawyer, yeah,
and talking on podcasts and saying, I represent this many Albertans who want to leave and become, a part of America. And it's like, wait. You don't speak for everyone.
Yeah. Fair enough. Kenzie says, I keep saying that same thing, Jespo. Carney in, Alberta out. Ytrium, meantime, says, what does he say? It's not a very kind comment, but basically just says there's one word for people leaving those types of comments. Losers. That from Ytrium. I don't know. Listen, I'm of two minds on this. Number one, I've got no time for talk about Alberta separation, right? My Canada includes Alberta, if that's how you want to put it. I remember asking this question on talk radio many, many years ago. We did a whole show on it, a call-in show on it. Literally, I think it was like a guest canceled with 5 minutes to go, and we were just like, we'll do the whole show as a call-in on Alberta separation. And interesting to hear the comments. I firmly believe that the majority of Albertans strongly feel a connection to Canada, but I wouldn't discount the fact that you could see growth in a movement around it. Whether or not that materialized or manifested itself into anything, I would say no. But I've seen some people estimate that 1 in 5 Albertans, that approximately 20% of the people that live here would warm to the idea of a sovereign Alberta. I just logistically, I don't think it happens. I don't think it makes your economic growth any easier. I think it makes it much more difficult. There's the treaties to sort out and everything else that folks are talking about in the same context as being annexed by the United States. Sure. But that doesn't mean that we just write it off. If 20% of people in your home province believe something, I think that that's worth at least acknowledging.
Sure, but I mean, if we had a referendum on this thing, it would be, the majority of people would say no. Like, people always say, this saying, touch grass to the city folks, like, and then the rural folks, like I would say or the people who think this way. I'm not going to say rural folks think this way. Scratch that from the record. I'm just going to say touch concrete. Like, I go to events every weekend with hundreds of people. I do weddings, corporate events, and this is Alberta. I know when I look out there, I know that it's a sea of blue, all right, with a few red specks mingled in. And even those people, when we're talking nowadays, hundreds of people, thousands of people at events who I interact with on any given night, I mean, they all think it's a joke. Do they still support Danielle Smith and the Premier? Probably. Do they still, want to lobby for oil and gas and our richness in that here? All of them. Are they wearing cowboy hats and requesting country? And I can, I get the vibe from them. I can probably pinpoint where their allegiances are, where their opinions are. Yes. But they all laugh at this. The majority of them say, they make jokes about it. Like, yeah, wouldn't it be great? But we all know that it's a joke, right?
Yeah,
but I do agree with you that 25% is not nothing.
Yeah, it's not nothing. And if it is 20%, if it is 1 in 5, Glenna says a lot of Canadians have relatives in Alberta. They don't want to leave the country. Some of you are saying that, like, if this happens, you're out. Michael says that any separatist can just pack their bags and leave. Nothing is stopping them from applying for a green card. Adam says, I'm a proud Albertan, born and raised. I do not know, nor have I ever known, a single legitimate Alberta separatist. Says Albertans love Canada regardless of how we feel treated by Ottawa. That from Adam. This is kind of, some of you are saying, like, Lorraine says people that want to join the U.S. are welcome to move there. Make sure your paperwork's done, by the way, or you could end up in ICE jail. You're 100% correct. Not wrong about that. Others are saying if Alberta separates, look at this from Epsilon Films. What's up? Says, if Alberta splits from Canada, I'm leaving Alberta. Well, that's one less healthcare worker for the province. Just talk about, like, practical stuff. Like, a lot of you were talking about, Melissa says, the fact that some Albertans would want to separate if the Liberals win again just shows they don't actually like democracy. Yeah, I mean, if you said that to their face, what they would say is they don't feel represented. They feel that Canada needs electoral reform. They don't like that elections are essentially determined, in many cases, by the time that polls close in Manitoba. So that's what they would say. They would say that they don't feel that the democracy is serving them. I just think about practical things, right? Like, everybody talks about, like, we can't get a pipeline through Quebec, so we're going to separate. And what then? Like, you leave Canada, and then it's going to make it easier to get a pipeline through Quebec or to get a pipeline through somewhere else. I also wonder about, like, basic things, Johnny, like real estate values. Like, what happens if Alberta separates, and then all of a sudden, let's say that there's not sort of like this collective incredible, let's say it's something that splits the province. Like, do you remember the Quebec referendum? You remember that back in the day? I mean, we were all just young. I know that all of us are all very young, and we're all in our prime right now, so we can barely remember this, everybody. But do your best to think back. You remember during that referendum when you're talking about like a 50% split, basically? So it's like you and your neighbor, or you and the couple across the street, and you feel differently about your place in Canada, which is like a pretty major thing, right? That's like that's a pretty foundational perspective to share, and also a pretty significant thing to disagree on. And I just look back on that, and I think that if Alberta ever were to get to that point, we're not fear-mongering here, it's a thought exercise, it's a hypothetical. If it were to get to that point, and let's say that Alberta does vote to separate, hypothetically, which I don't think it ever would, but let's say it does. And then let's say that of the 4.5 million people here, like 1.5 million or 2 million of them are like, well, I'm getting out of here because I'm staying in Canada. And so you're going to move where? To like Fernie and Kimberley, and you're going to try to live in the Lower Mainland, or maybe Saskatoon, or like where are you going to go? So these folks are leaving, and then what? And then all of a sudden, like, this is just practical stuff. Like, the real estate market is flooded. Like, all of a sudden there is way more supply than there is demand, and housing prices plummet, and people with like HELOCs, like home equity lines of credit, all of a sudden have found that like they thought that their house was worth $800, but their house is actually worth $550 or less. And then all of a sudden you add up on top of that increased costs with like figuring out paying for your own policing, which I know the provincial government's moving on already, and everything else. Like, if we ever actually practically thought out what it would look like to leave, and the price that people ultimately would pay, and how it could actually really, really hurt people's bottom lines. Like, I'm not 100% sure that if it's true, I keep citing this like 1 in 5 Albertans, like, let's say hypothetically it's 1 in 5 Albertans. Let's say hypothetically there's 20%, and I actually bet the number is quite a bit lower than that. But if it is 1 in 5, like, have those 1 in 5 actually thought about what it means for them, for you, if this is the way you feel? I don't know. A lot of people always just, people talk about your home is your greatest investment, this, that, and the other. Everybody just assumes it's going to keep going up, right? Nobody recognizes that there can be events, there can be things, there can be foundational shifts, and all of a sudden your home can lose like 30 or 40% of its value, right? Market realities. I don't know that people think about stuff like that. Randy says electoral reform meaningfully would mean that all parties would need to work together. Ken says, I would say Danielle Smith is undoubtedly a separatist. Her ransom note the other day clearly shows it, as it asked for impossible things in the Canadian Constitution. Tracy's wondering if I misplaced the decimal. Figures that it's actually 2% of Albertans that would support separation, not 20. You know what, Tracy, and fair enough. Like, I'm just saying, you see people throw this number around, and for the sake of conversation, we're doing that. But maybe it's the wrong move on our part, because maybe we're just reiterating fake news. I'd be curious to know. Maybe I'll put a Twitter poll out, and the same 15,000 people
that'll be concrete.
Well, that'll be concrete. I've been thinking about your Touch Concrete campaign. I
well,
kind of
it's
like
just,
that. I think it's got to be touch pavement.
I hate when people say touch grass, and I'm talking with some people in the chat right now. Like, people are like, "Well, how do you know? How do you know the opinion?" Well, listen, and it's nothing against rural people or people who I wish I could live on a piece of land and own chickens and cows and just keep to myself. That is my dream if I had the money to do it. But at the same time, like, we're downtown every day. We work in a building with hundreds of people. I go to events every weekend. So do you. You host them with thousands of people.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do you interact with in a week, Ryan, compared to most people? I would say for me, on any given week, it could be 1,000 or more. And I go to events and I hear people. I listen to people. I attend events. I lend my ear to them because I want to know what people are thinking. I just don't want to gab their ear off. And so when I say touch concrete, I just mean, like, I think that we interact with more people than the average person does. So for a lot of people who have these opinions, I think maybe they need to do that, touch concrete. And I'm not saying move to the city, get an EV, any of that stuff. I'm saying just go out and talk to people who don't have the same opinions as you, because I do it all the time. I get hired by these people, and I go to their weddings and their corporate events, and I host, and I go down to the Oilers games.
Are you asking
and
people
I play
about Alberta's
outside
separation
fan park
at their weddings?
No, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to insult these people, and I know they don't want to insult me either, because they've hired me or because they've invited me to an event. So we listen. We have polite discussion. We're not, two blank faces in a chat or on social media. And the majority of people, that's why I don't believe social media most of the time, because when you see someone face to face, even if you know they have the exact staunch 180 opinion from you, the majority of people, when you get close to them and talk to them face to face, they're polite people. They just have their feelings and opinions. And most of them, I don't think, would pack a bag, move down to the States, or put a border wall up around Alberta.
It's ridiculous.
The majority of us are proud Canadians who love the rest of the country. We love to travel to BC. We love to go to Ontario and Newfoundland. We love to go to the East Coast.
Dude, everybody that is talking about leaving Canada right now, literally every single one of them was wrapping themselves in the Canadian flag through the trucker convoy. Like, the Canadian flag meant everything to these people until it meant nothing. Scarlett in our live chat says, just look at people flocking from Ontario to Alberta. Separating from Canada would instantly halt that migration. She says, Alberta calling? Alberta couldn't answer the phone. That's also a great point. Marianne says, by the way, Jespo, a lot of people left Twitter, left X, so that may slant your poll. You guys, honestly, the Twitter polls are hilarious. We have so much. Twitter polls are ridiculous. That's why we call them our unscientific, unofficial Twitter polls. But what happened with my Twitter poll, which I love when this happens, because you get all the comments. I was joking with Erica and Cheryl about this, the Discourse co-hosts, when they joined us on our March 24th episode. I encourage you to check that out. When a poll has like 100 retweets, because we're getting hilarious comments on this. Like, I had saved these. I was going to joke with you off camera about this after our show. I'll just do it now, because I've been screen grabbing like the comments that people are leaving about our poll. And people want to point out, this is the same poll, they're talking about Real Talk, they're talking about me, these are the same people. So here's like BT says, so according to your bullshit poll, Jespersen, you and the Conservatives are going to win. You're still suckholing to Danielle Smith. That's the reason people don't listen to your show. It sucks. So a conservative suckholer. I've never heard suckholing before. Have you, Johnny? I'm suckholing to the Premier. That from BT. But then Andrew follows up and says, no, Ryan's audience is extreme left. Okay. And then we got one from Holly who says, Ryan, you forgot the majority of your listeners are Maple MAGA. Johnny, the majority of our listeners are Maple MAGA, like Make America Great Again. Danielle Smith lovers, your poll is definitely not scientific nor accurate. Well, we know it's not scientific nor accurate, but the majority of our audience as Maple MAGA is amazing. But then Daisy follows up and says, no, Ryan's show is super left wing, so we assume that most of his followers are as well. So these polls mean nothing. People commenting on the same poll.
Here's a poll
that all of my listeners are both extreme left and Maple MAGA.
It means nothing.
The same audience. It means nothing, but we have fun with it. I don't know if you can do polls. I should go check, because I'd be curious. We're on Blue Sky now too. You can follow me on Blue Sky, and I'm doing my best to make sure that I pump content out there too. This is the newest platform that we're on. If you can run polls there, maybe we'll run the same poll and see what happens, see how Blue Sky differs from Twitter. But what obviously happens with this Twitter poll, like how many retweets is it? Like, let's just take a quick look. When you you can hijack polls. That's the beauty of it. I mean, that's what makes this so entertaining. But this poll of ours, Johnny, it was retweeted. Here it is. It was retweeted 939 times. Right? There's 395 comments. So when 939 people blast a poll out to their followers, like if Maxime Bernier is one of those 939, then that'll move the needle on that entire poll. So obviously it's not serious, but it is an interesting snapshot. And if anything, and if nothing else, it's a look at how social media polling can work and how it can be doctored, hijacked, and capitalized on. So it's great. It happens all the time. You remember the most recent, probably the other one that we did that had a response like this. We had a poll. I think it had like 75,000 respondents. Who would you rather have a beer with? And we just put the federal political party leaders on there. And, the Justin Trudeau vote was pretty huge on that one, and he loved it. Well, why? If you looked at, who was retweeting it, if Pierre Poilievre would have retweeted that poll, number one, would have been amazing. But number two, obviously you'd have a bunch of conservatives chiming in. If you get a bunch of liberals that are retweeting it, then liberals will chime in. I don't think that these polls have anything to do with our audience, to be quite honest with you. When it's retweeted almost 1,000 times, it has everything to do with who's retweeting it, right? So that's what I would say on that. That's my response to the poll. I thought that it was hilarious. I loved it because it absolutely took off, obviously. But you can let us know what you think about this. I think that, whether or not there's something to read into, Whiterium says there's no such thing as an extreme left in this country, says words have meaning. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not the one that left the comment, right? Somebody calls us extreme left. There is extreme left in every country, but not mainstream. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? I wanted to put a couple of other things on your radar, including what our friends at Edmonton Opera have going on right now. Edmonton Opera has just announced its 2025-26 season, and it is a season of legacy, where some legacies have got to be passed down, others have got to be claimed. And in this season, Edmonton Opera is exploring what it means to inherit, build, and redefine a legacy through a bold lineup of performances and special events. You can check out the full lineup. Get your tickets today at edmontonopera.com. The season opening with Bravi, opera's greatest hits, a grand celebration of opera's most powerful and timeless music in partnership with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra. This takes place at the Winspear Center on October 9th and the 11th. Showcasing work from many of the greats, highlighting the legacy of opera's biggest moments. In February, audiences will witness the world premiere of Indians on Vacation, a poignant and comedic new opera based on Thomas King's novel of the same name, and the season will conclude with the third chapter of Wagner's legendary Ring Cycle, Siegfried, coming up in May of 2026. You can find all the details at edmontonopera.com. Wanted to put UCAN Youth Services on your radar. We are so proud to be partnering with them this year, and that includes, what an absolute blast at their comedy nights last week. Thanks to everybody who showed up on the 17th of March in support of UCAN. We learned a little bit more about their relentless outreach program, and we wanted to shine the light on that today. UCAN's Youth Services relentless outreach workers stop at nothing to reach out to youth and empower them in making positive, healthy, and life-changing decisions. These are young people, the 50 of them that are most interacting with Edmonton's police service. This is not a good list to be on, but these are young people that in many circumstances have had absolutely minimal supports coming up. And UCAN's doing everything they can to support these young people. That includes sometimes housing supports, nutritional supports, counseling services, free counseling, by the way, at UCAN. You can learn more about the services, that program based on referrals through the Edmonton Police Service Youth Unit. They've also got an incredible program for young people aged 18 to 24 that are working to get into the workforce. It's called the Verto Project. If you know somebody that would be a great fit for that program, they just need a helping hand. They've got all the motivation. They've got untapped potential. You can learn more about that program too on their website. That's UCAN.ca. And I wanted to draw your attention to the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce Instagram account. If you don't follow them, give them a follow today at Edmonton Chamber. A ton of resources for business owners and operators in the Metro Edmonton region, including their federal action plan. This is a bold roadmap for Canada's economic future. Businesses in Edmonton and across the country facing real challenges, rising costs, labor shortages, stalled productivity. With the federal election scheduled for April 28th, it's time to unlock Canada's potential. You can read their full action plan via the link in their bio on Instagram. That's at Edmonton Chamber, or you can visit their website. That's edmontonchamber.com. I love this. A lot of people just sort of standing up in this comment about Alberta separating. I'm not pretending like this is happening today. I'm not pretending like this is happening ever. But we always want to touch on issues and rumblings and realities that are resonating within our audience and beyond. So we're better equipped to talk about it with people that we care about. I think most especially people that may disagree. So we welcome your comments on this to talk@ryanjespersen.com. We're checking our email inbox throughout the day. a lot of times Real Talkers are helping set the editorial direction of the show, and that includes through this election campaign. So today it was Vicky Mochama, a host of Party All the Time. We encourage you to subscribe to her podcast wherever you get your podcast. First episode drops on the 28th. That's coming up a couple of days from now. And as we wrap this episode, I'm happy to let you know that on our next show, that's going to be the 26th of March, we're going to roll out another federal election partnership. That's right, we're collaborating with the team at Politico, which means that we're going to be looking across the country once a week all through the campaign, and I'm going to do a little writing for them as well. We look forward to hearing from you on this and all the other matters that matter most. We'll talk to you again soon.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.